and I am turning over the beginning of the program to our district governor nominee, Sheila Brennan from the Rotary Club of Vienna. And take it away, Sheila.
I already muted myself. Thank you, Pat. Welcome, everyone. It is so wonderful to see all of you. And I look forward to getting to know you throughout the whole year. If you have not done so yet, please go ahead and add your name and your club name in the chat box. As the presentation is going on this evening, please enter any questions that you have in the chat box. If you do them all in caps, then we will know that that is a question that will be asked. When the presentation is done, we will then go through all the questions that are in the chat box. And then we'll have an open session at the very end if there are any other questions that come up during our question and answer period. So I would like to take this opportunity now and introduce our speaker for the evening. Our speaker is Mrs. Renee Laws. She joined Rotary in 2013, is currently serving as the Area 4 Area Governor for the District 7610. She served as her club's president from 2018 and 2019 and is the chair for the district's Diversity and Inclusion Committee the following year. She is an RLI graduate and a future facilitator, taught diversity and inclusion and membership classes at the 2019 CPETS class, and has been identified as an emerging leader in the district, able to expand her knowledge and understanding of Rotary at the 2020 Zone 3334 Leadership Summit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that was held last month virtually. Renee believes Rotary is a game changer and wants to be part of that change. Renee is the president of Northwind Logistics, which she owns with her husband, Bill. She is the mother of 6 children, a military retired veteran spouse, and a military mom. It is my pleasure to introduce Renee Laws.
Good evening. Hello. Thank you for all of the claps and smiles. I'm so glad to be here with you guys this evening, and I'm a bit nervous. I've never done a virtual classroom like this before. So I usually vibe off the energy of everybody in the room. So I'm gonna need you guys to throw a lot of energy at me while I'm doing this so that I can maintain. So we're just gonna go right in. I'm gonna share my screen. I practiced this earlier today with Rich. So let's see how it goes. I think we made it. And share. Taking a moment. Do you see what I see? Okay. All right. Are we on full screen? Can you guys see the presentation? I just need one person to chime in.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So about me. You heard mention that I have 6 children. I in fact do. This is my whole gang, and they're all adults. But in the far corner, that's how I see them on a daily basis in my head, just so you all are aware. When I think of my children, they're in that bottom left-hand corner. That's my husband, Bill. He rides Harleys. I ride on the back, and we're a Marine Corps family. You'll see the girl in the teal colored dress and the short brown hair. She at that time was an active duty Marine. She's still, she is not a Marine anymore, but once Marine, always Marine. And then my son, who's got that grin on his face with the tie, looking pretty casual on the end, he just made E6 in the U.S. Navy. Our youngest there in uniform is still in uniform, but in college ROTC now, and he's a midshipman, Marine Select. Then I've got the young lady in the graduation cap. She's in college, working on her music education degree. The redhead is a manager at an awesome little daycare for animals, dogs, cats, you name it, in Chesapeake, Virginia. And the one on the other end, from my US Navy sailor, she is a chef living in Portland, Oregon, who went to the Culinary Institute of America and excelled. So I have some amazing, awesome kids. I'm really lucky in that I've got such a close-knit clan, but it's allowed me to do a lot of volunteer work. And so I'll apply my knowledge that I've come up through the ranks and try to share it with you guys today. Paul Harris said to think about change. Hold on, I'm so sorry. Apologies. I know that we were sharing, it's just not, hi guys. We'll pop it back up, sorry. Okay, we're back, but I can't get it to go on full screen. Apologies, you're just gonna have to look at my side screen. I'm sorry, I know that that's not key and it's distracting. So Paul Harris, our founder, once said, "This is a changing world and we must be prepared to change with it. The story of Rotary will have to be written again and again." And then again, in later years, he was talking about Rotary. If we wanted to realize our proper destiny, we have to be evolutionary all the time, but we will have to be revolutionary on occasions. So if our founder can recognize this almost 100 years ago, it can be recognized today. The important thing to remember when we're thinking about change, though, is what types of change we're talking about. So I want a quick show of hands. How many of you think that your club needs to change some things that'll make it better, and you intend to make those changes on July the 1st? Awesome. Okay. And then I'll ask you this. How many of you believe that your club is doing just fine and you're not going to need to make any major changes? Everything's good. There's less hands. Okay, that's awesome. That's great. But for anybody that did have their hand raised when you said your club was good to go, sometimes there are changes that you won't be expecting that are going to come at you instead of you deciding that change needs to happen. So even though what we're talking about might not sound like it's something you need to hear, you could have something happen like you lose your venue, or a key member of your club has to leave for some reason, budget issues. There's numerous things that can change your club from the core. And so you really have to already be mindful of, how will I handle change? But if you're initiating the change, then that makes you a change leader. Dr. Jackson spoke last week about transformational leadership, and we're going to talk about that later on. We're going to go to our outcomes. Here's what we're expecting to happen today. I'm losing you again. I'm not sure what I've done All right, we'll talk about outcomes. Sorry. By completing this Zoom leadership session, you will have a knowledge of the basics of how to manage change, how to assess your members' readiness to make change, how to plan for that change, and how to respond to resistance, which will come, and that's natural and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to be ready for it. So we're gonna talk about transformational leadership as we go through this entire presentation. You're gonna continue to see aspects of that practice of leadership coming up that Dr. Jackson spoke of last week. My computer, however, does not want to. There we are. So when we talk about transformational leadership, we've got to remember that the examples of that are idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, individual consideration, and servant management. We often hear about servant leadership, but we have to touch on servant management. It's just as important, and it's going to be key as we move forward with our lesson tonight, especially because we're going to be asking our club members to, to join us on whatever our mission is to change. We have to assess our community. We need to assess our club before we can decide what we need to change. And then we have to see, how are they going to buy into that? How are we going to help them find that headspace? So a change leader, implementing change well, requires a good leader or a group of leaders to promote the benefits of the change and to help others through the process. So if I could have you guys real quick, and I just know we're adding so much technology to the technology, but if I could have you guys go into the chat and just type up one attribute that you think is key when you're talking about a change leader. Someone else is going to have to read out of the chat, though. I'm having a hard time trying to access it. I'm so sorry. Oh, there it is. Sorry. I found it. Okay. You need to go to slideshow view. Danielle is helping me out with my.
Okay. Compassion, patience, flexibility, set an example, inclusion, vision, leadership, ability to make changes, intelligence, think outside the box. I always like to say there is no box. Open-mindedness, inspirational. So that's pretty good.
That's amazing. Okay, thank you for reading those off. And now I'm able to something magical that Danielle said. I clicked a button and I can see you guys and I can see my screen. So thank you. Okay, so all of those suggestions are amazing. I saw a lot of key elements that are going to be important as we move through this lesson. Vision, connecting people, motivating, inspiring, communication, organization, detail, and empathy. Those are all things that that we see in a change leader. So I'm gonna show, just for fun, we're gonna watch a real fun little a little commercial for a moment.
If I were Dad, what would I want for Christmas? What the? Wait, I'm Dad? Hey.
Morning, Dad.
Oh, hi there. Whoa.
There you go, Dave.
See you, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Dave. See you next week. Hey, puppy. Dad sure spends a lot of time on his feet.
Thank you, baby girl. They're perfect.
Adorable. First of all, she is adorable. But what attribute did we see in that? I mean, I think I gave it away when I said, let's watch this commercial about empathy. Sorry, I didn't let you guys answer. So empathy, I think, is one of the key elements to a change leader. And I'll tell you why. Because someone who's empathetic, they can understand what their team members are feeling or experiencing, and it helps them make better decisions for the whole group. And when you can make better decisions for the whole group, then you can easily get everyone to help you accomplish that task. You just have to get them on board. So let's go to the next slide. There we are. Okay. So the next thing that we need to do is assess if we're it's going crazy. If we're ready for change as a group, are you ready for change as the leader? Because you're going to have a lot of expectations hoisted upon you when you're ready for the process. So as you're assessing, the desire to make changes needs to be shared by more than just the people at the highest levels of the organization. And that's important to keep in mind. Progress and growth happen only when the people at all levels agree that they want the change, they're ready to shift how they do things. Sometimes if the change is happening to you, instead of you initiating the change, your dynamic is gonna have to be adjusted a little bit. Maybe everybody doesn't have to agree the change needs to happen, it's happening. So you need to get everybody to try to buy in on how that change can be affected positively, and how you can make everyone else in the group feel like it's going to be a good change. We can make it work. It's, you know, it's going to be fixed. But you also have to think about, are you ready for a change? Are you generally reluctant to adopt change? Give me a thumbs up if your first reaction to somebody telling you that your favorite television show or your favorite series on the radio has been changed to a different date or time than what you're used to. Give me a thumbs up if you are resistant to that change. Let me know if that's immediately your first reaction is going to be like, that I don't like that. Okay, so several of you. For me, that would be a big one. But I mean, I guess, you know, you can record television shows and watch them whenever you want, but sometimes you just have that Thursday night that you really need to sit in front of the television and eat a bag of popcorn. And I'm just saying, so it's a natural thing to be resistant. So you have to look inside yourself. Are you an early adopter? Are you the kind of person that if someone says, I have this great idea, you jump on it and say, let's go? Or are you the kind of person that you need to wait? You need to learn all about it. You got to find out what it means. I want to see the analytics. I need to see all the results that are going to happen in 10 years from this change we're making. I need to see everything. Or are you somewhere in between? And if you're somewhere in between, how do you determine whether others are ready if you're not even sure if you are? So I'll tell you how. You listen and learn. You identify the barriers that you can see. But I say all the time, you don't know what you don't know. So you identify the barriers to success. You talk to everyone. And when you get the pushback, which you will, someone is going to push back. It's human nature. Some people are scared. When you get the pushback, you just need to be prepared. So what are we about to do? We're going to help you get prepared for that change. So leading change is a challenge because humans are wired to resist it. You can read the rest of this. It's just a fun graphic, but if you fail to recognize the human and cultural aspects of change, your change will invariably fail. You need to know that you've got to engage. You need to share with everyone the why and get everybody excited about the change. It's a positive thing. They just need to see why. So John Cotter has a great model for change. And you know, these are steps and you start with a sense of urgency, but I want to go to the green. Can everybody see this graphic? Are you guys all seeing what I'm seeing? I just like to check in. Give me a thumbs up if you guys are all looking at the 8 steps of John Cotter. Okay, good. We're all here and we're awake. Okay, so 8 steps of the John Cotter model of change. Let's look at 4, 5, and 6. Communicate the vision, empower broad-based action, and get quick wins. Because when you're looking at a big picture change, you need to break it down into small categories. You need to break it out into your committees and let them help take some of the planning over. break and make everybody a part of it, have everyone be a stakeholder. Everyone needs to buy in. If all of the committees are involved and everyone's going in the same direction, then you're all on the same team. Everyone feels empowered. Everyone feels like they're part of a solution. So you need to get the quick wins, even if that's just little bites and steps at a time. But the components of results and change, as you can see from the Ambrose model, you're talking about vision, skills, incentive, resources, and an action plan. Those are the key elements. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to simply break those down. And we're going to see where it starts. So if you're planning for change, this is your 6 key elements. You've seen them before in the slide that I just showed you. And I'm sure you've seen them before elsewhere. That was just a punny. So vision, collaborative commitment, skills, rewards, resources, action plan. The secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And I think that that's something that we lose when we're talking about change in our club. We're constantly battling the old way of thinking, the old way that things have been done. Oh, it's been done that way all along and it's never failed us. It hasn't failed you, and it probably won't fail you. That doesn't make it a good thing. So if you have something that needs to be modernized or more efficient, change is necessary, and you just focus on building the new and don't talk about what's wrong with the old. You talk about what's great with what we're working on moving forward. So it's always with the vision, but you have to share your vision. You can't assume that everyone sees what you see. So if you don't explain it clearly, you're going to confuse people about the purpose of the change, and that could lead to an incomplete or failed implementation of your entire collaborative effort. So we want to make sure that we explain the vision, and then we want to get everyone on board. People might not commit to a change if they feel they weren't included in the planning or in the implementation. Everyone needs to be on board. And I just, when I put collaboration in my Google search for images, you'll see what came up. It's a rotary wheel, y'all. And I thought, wow, it wasn't the only rotary wheel, but I didn't want to be cheesy and put a bunch of rotary wheels all over the page, because I think we know we're pretty awesome. But when I put in collaboration, the gears came up, but the rotary wheel was all over the page. And I thought that was really cool. And I don't know if it was an accident or if it's because we're so collaborative, but I like to think that it's the part that we're collaborative. So collaborative commitment, get everybody on board, get everybody to understand the mission. And then you need to look at the skill set that you've got in front of you. And if people lack the skills that they need to make the change, their anxiety could be about their lack of knowledge or expertise. And that could lead to resistance as well. I think we've all learned that lesson with the evolution of what we're doing right now, this virtual learning segment. I want to say my first 10 minutes was pretty rough, even though I ran through it with Rich and I was like, I've got it, no problem. It wasn't perfect. So I'm still learning. I'm learning skills that I didn't need before for this type of work. I didn't have to run a PowerPoint on a virtual meeting on a Zoom before. I've done PowerPoints, but so skills, if someone doesn't have the skill and they're worried about how that's going to affect them when the change comes, that could be part of it. So we need to look at that and determine what skills are needed and implement and sustain the change. So if you go ahead and say, all right, if everybody's super confused about Zoom, let's have a Zoom platform lesson. So there's tons of different ways that can be done, but let's just have a lesson, or get on a Zoom call one-on-one with someone in the club and sit down and say, okay, like I did with Rich Story today. He was my saving grace. We sat down and I said, okay, let's pretend that we're doing this activity. So skills, just make sure that you're making sure they have the skills. And then rewards. Some people are in it for they want the flair, they want the bling, they want the recognition, they want all of the gratitude. And man, that's why I sign up for most stuff, because I'm like, I want to be part of the party. I want to like celebrate at the end. Let's all get together. And I'm not worried necessarily about the gratitude, but I really want to be part of the celebration at the end. I want that reward. It's a job well done and look what we did. But also, as John Ruskin says, the highest reward isn't what they get, but what they become. And I think that that's something that we need to talk more with our Rotarians about, because it's not just about writing a check and feeling good about yourself at the end of the day. Being a Rotarian is so much more than that. And we become different people as we grow through our Rotary experience. We learn from one another. We learn from Rotarians that have gone before us. And we learn from younger Rotarians that are coming in behind us, that are teaching us new ideas and new ways of thinking and new perspectives. So we're constantly learning, and we're constantly trying to mentor and pass on our knowledge to the next generation so that we can help them make good choices with the resources they have. So the reward isn't always palpable. It isn't always something that you see on paper. It isn't always something that you can touch, but the reward is always there when you're working with people that need you to work with them, people that need your help. So we talked about resources. A lack of resources can make it difficult for people to learn what they need to know. This can cause frustration and resistance to change. So you need to develop tools and resources to support the change. So like I was talking about, get everyone signed up, teach everyone how to have their own Zoom account. And I'm just using this analogy. This could be for any of the change that you're talking about. This is just the most recent one that I think we've all been dealing with. Because before this evolution of virtual meetings, this was not something that we all regularly did. So, and I thank you for bearing with us, because you guys are the first class to go through this. So that's super exciting. You guys are going to be able to boast, like, look what we did and we survived. I hope. Let's fingers crossed. Okay. We're not there yet. So action plan. Obviously, we're all the way through all of our steps. What's next? An action plan. We've got to implement it. Guess what Rotary gives us? A strategic planning guide. It's right on the Rotary website. You can find everything that I'm talking about. Probably, I'm sure Pat has already posted it all over the Learning Center right on the district. So any of the things that I'm talking about today are going to be found there. And this, unfortunately, recording will be played over and over again for somebody someday. And I apologize at this point for my lack of knowledge at the beginning. So why do some changes fail? Well, when you incorporate each element in the change plan, you have a better chance of succeeding. But if you leave out any of the elements, that can lead to an issue, and it can cause the plan to fail. So what happens when your plan fails? You start again. We're resilient. We're phoenixes. We rise. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try again. And we're going to revisit what went wrong. We're going to try to figure out by asking everyone and talking to all of our fellow Rotarians, what do you think went, what was the disagreement? And then we compromise, and then we go at it again. You might want to do a club assessment, a quick status check before you move ahead with your plan. So if you think about the characteristics that someone that leads change should have, you want to assess how ready for change the people in your organization are. So you want to decide where are we sitting right now? This evolution of change that we were going for is failing. Why? We need to do a survey. I would personally reach out. Okay, give me a thumbs up if when you guys have an issue in your club, is it handled by, okay, I'm going to ask you to thumbs up if it's handled by email. Thumbs up if it's handled by email, if there's an issue in the club. Like I'm not talking like a regular issue that's handled at a meeting. I'm talking about like, this is a big issue. This is something that, okay. Phone call. How many of your club handles something like that with a phone call? Do you do individual phone calls? Okay. All right, so I think at this point, if you're trying to do an assessment of your club and you're really trying to figure out just where they are, I think you could start out with an email, but you're gonna wanna quickly go to personal phone calls, because you wanna know, and you can't know unless you're face to face, and we can't be right now. You can't know what everyone's thinking. Even text and email can get a little dicey when you're trying to figure out someone's tone or where they're coming from. And you want the least amount of confusion and the best amount of communication as possible. So we're going to talk, we're just going to ask them, why are you resistant to this change? And it very easily could be one of those things that we already talked about, and you'll be able and ready to deal with that. So some of the things that they might say are, it's all moving too fast. I have questions. No one asked me. It's hard. We've heard that from our kids, and we've heard that from our coworkers. We've heard it from everyone. So I want you to, if you could, let's go to this next one. There we go. Why? It's moving too fast. No one asked me. Has anyone heard these kind of responses when you've dealt with any kind of change within an organization you've been a part of? Not necessarily Rotary, at work, when your boss comes in and says, here's what's about to happen, and everyone kind of looks at each other. Is this the kind of stuff that you guys talk about behind closed doors when the boss walks away? Is everyone kind of like, I don't know, no one asked me. What? So do you know maybe how your club members would feel as you're moving along? All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of interactive stuff. You guys I need to get your fingers moving. So I'm gonna ask you to take your mouse and hover around the top of my presentation, and you're gonna have a drop-down menu come down, and it's gonna have annotate. And I believe you did this with Dr. Jackson last week. And so it shouldn't be a big issue, but we'll click on the annotate, and then you're gonna go over to the next drop-down menu, has the word stamp. It's the 5th one in from the left. And you go down to the stamps and just pick whichever one you want. I'm gonna pick a star because I think you guys are all gold stars. So I'm gonna put gold stars across the top. So I want you guys to pick a stamp and stamp near my stamp up here at the top by the line. So I can see you guys, and you don't have to pick a star. You can do whatever you want. Of course you can be a gold star like me, but you can do whatever you want. All right, I love it. All right, so we're gonna do an exercise. And real quick, if you're having trouble, if anybody's having trouble, raise your hand so that we can explain it further. Okay, cool. Doesn't look like anybody's having trouble. Okay. All right. So my first question is, and one or more of these could be the answer. And I'm gonna clear because I want to see each answer each time. So these are all answers to the questions I'm about to ask. So I want you to identify which one you think is the answer, the key element that you would go to when posed this opposition. So the new vision will change what I do in my current role. I don't know how to do the new job that is expected of me. What nature category is this? Skills or rewards or action plan? Give me your guess. Skills, rewards, or action plan. This person says their new vision will change what I do in my current role. All right, skills, resources, action plan. The best, all of those are good answers. The best answer is skills is the most direct issue that she seems to be having, that this member has. I don't know why I just guessed it. Everyone who presented in the meeting about the future of our organization is new here or is a hired consultant. I worked here for 23 years. You think that someone would have asked me. So is it a collaborative committee, a rewards, or an action plan? If she's unhappy about being part of something, what do you think is her collaborative commitment? Yeah, I forgot to clear from the last one. Sorry. Man, I am hitting at all cylinders today. So you guys guessed collaborative commitment. Good job. The next question. I agree that our organization could benefit from making some changes, but the goals seem too broad and maybe even too big. How are we going to accomplish all of this? Could this be solved with skills, resources, or an action plan? Vision is a really good answer too. Action plan is the one they wrote down, but vision is just as effective because you got to be clear with your vision. And it sounds like they weren't in the beginning, but yes, both of those are correct. Good job. You're getting the hang of it. All right, we were promised new smartphones to access this new app, but the ones for my department were delayed and I can't use the new online system to my old phone. How am I supposed to access the new app now? Is this a collaborative committee issue, rewards issue, or an action plan issue? And this is a trick question because it's resources, you guys. Oh my gosh, good job. It didn't even give resources as the choice. Brilliant. All right, final one. What is the point of this change? Things are fine the way they are, and I don't understand why we should go through all of this. Is this a skills or a vision or reward issue? And I forgot to delete the answers, but I see what's coming up. Vision and rewards. Vision is the closest answer. Rewards is most definitely right there, for sure. That's amazing. Well, this piece of paper says that you guys got the answers right, so you're ready to lead. Okay, just kidding. But you are. It really says that you've reached the next step. So we're going to go ahead and turn off the annotations and we're going to go to the next slide. All right, so next is leadership in action. And what we've learned today is that communication is a key. We need to involve our stakeholders. Feedback is imperative. And I'm going to throw a new one in. The 4-way test is a valuable tool. If you're trying to figure out if your club is headed in the right direction, if your change that you're looking for, or the change that's happening to you can be solved, put it up against the 4-way test. If it passes the sniff test, then you're going in the right direction. So you want to celebrate all the accomplishments. And then what I'd like for you to do now is if you could go in the chat and tell me, what are your final thoughts? What are you taking away from today? If I could have 5 or 6 word sentence that talks about what you think about moving forward with your leadership, change leader wise, what did you learn today? And then if someone could read the answer.
We'll have Sheila read those, but while everybody's getting their thing in, one additional thing, and Renee touched on this that I'd like to bring up, and that is there are 7 or 8 different types of adult learning skills, and we don't have to get that complicated. Just understand that people are either see and do's or think and do's. And Renee pointed this out through her presentation. See and one isn't smarter than the other, it's just the way your brain is structured. See and do's or think and do's are people who can listen to new ideas, and in their head, they're thinking how they would change, how that would look different, etc. See and do's are people who have what is going on and what they do, how they do, cemented in the middle of their head. And when you're telling them new things, they're trying to push that into what they already know and how they already do. And of course, what you're telling them doesn't fit with that. So they really need the luxury of seeing how people are making changes and how they would. So always remember that you always have to be giving to those 2 groups. And I'll let Sheila start talking about the questions and the comments that we have.
Thank you. Actively listen to our team, focus, communicate, and motivate. It's important to be compassionate with the club members and seek consensus for change. Getting buy-in from the group is so important. Inclusion. Change must be collaborative. It's not top-down, autocratic style. Flexibility, communication. Have everyone buy into the change if possible. I will be on a FedEx with each member before July 1st to let them know they are valued and get a feel for like and dislikes. Emails are good, texts are better, phone calls are the best. Communicate and involve. Get buy-in from members, pick up the phone and see how they really feel about it. Change moving forward requires respect, knowing your members, listening, and patience. Empathy and understanding individual human traits are critical to building consensus. I think you must assess what the club wants to do during your year and show how the change can be beneficial to the club. Give members, committees, tasks to help shape how the change benefits the whole club. And one last one, empathy is so very important to leadership. Unless you walk a mile in another's shoes, how can you judge?
Amazing, amazing. So I'll see you guys at the first virtual pets. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let them take back over. It was my pleasure to work with you guys today. I'm sorry about the technical issues. Rich, Story, please don't be mad at me.
Well, would anybody like to, share an experience where they have been involved in significant change? And what were the things that worked with that process? And what were some of the things that maybe needed to be improved? Don't all volunteer at once. Oh, come on. I know y'all have been involved in change. And so those kinds of sharing those kinds of experiences is going to be important.
This is Curtis at the Bailey's Crossroads. And it's not a Rotary related change, but in my work situation, we came out with a new way to look at the way we organized our whole agency. And it's for the last 4 years, there's been communication, but not always enough communication the right way. You get down to a certain level, you got to continue to dig deeper and to get to the people, the very lowest person on the totem pole, if you want to call it that, to get that communication. So we've had a lot of communication, a lot of change, but not as quickly as we should have.
Curtis, did you use focus groups or, groups of people to discuss key elements and then pull that together and kind of share? How did they go about that, deciding what to do?
The decision actually came from a small group because you had to make a policy decision, direction, but then communicating how that was and what that meant. That was where we had lots and lots of discussions with people and to get them to understand what we were talking about. But what we didn't get to everybody, sometimes what we learned is people have to hear things. It used to say you had to hear it 3 times before you understand it. The new rule is you have to hear it 7 times before you understand it, because attention spans are so much less these days.
They say for adults, you have to communicate with adults 7 times before they'll even turn around to begin to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to communicate 5 more times before they decide they will pay attention. And then you always have to remember that even though you're communicating and in the moment they are paying attention, you must give them an ability to go back and find what you said, because they will not retain that to the next day. And that just speaks to Curtis's point, and you all experience it every day. We're so busy and so inundated so you have to remember that. What's another example from someone else?
I think it's important for people to remember why they're implementing change. I've seen change implemented because they want to be a change agent. They want to be transformative. It's about that individual. And I've seen organizations almost destroyed because there was no consultation with any level of management. Normally in the military, all the orders of the previous commander remain in effect. Well, when that doesn't happen, when the new commander walks in and just wipes the slate clean, it can lead to a disaster. It was resolved. They were relieved of command, but I've seen that.
That's the nice thing about the military. We can't do that in Rotary.
That's
Generally speaking.
transactional leadership.
Generally speaking. John, were you gonna also,
Right, 20 years ago, when I was last president, the place where we were having our, so we needed to find a new location. So I had a search committee put together, and the search committee went out and investigated a number of places and finally got back to me. It took longer than anticipated, and we were under a deadline. So myself and my board had to make a decision, and we went ahead and made a decision where we would meet within 2 weeks, and just announced it at a club meeting before the place that we were at closed. Well, there were a number of people that were unhappy because they felt that they hadn't been spoken with and communicated with as to where we would move our club meetings to, and they did not like the new location. So I learned that you have to go beyond just putting a task force together. You have to communicate to the entire club and get the entire club buy-in.
right, and there is the issue of change that you can have the luxury of time to develop consensus. And then sometimes there are changes in which your time element is limited. Let's face it, we were just in the chat box. Who could have thunk it? And as Renee brought up, the pandemic. And none of us were prepared for doing Zoom. I mean, we're still on Zoom, and this is an experiment. We're all experimenting together, as to how we should do this better. You've got to tell me how we need to do this better. I'm certainly an instrument in doing it, but man, I'm not the be all and the end all. So sometimes we have that luxury. But how would we go about to know what needs to be changed? How do we develop information? Let me give you one example to tell you what and I think I mentioned it to one of you earlier today. One of our clubs had said to me, Pat, when we were talking about needing to know, not presume or assume, you need to know. So they had been spending all of this time and energy and resources on their youth programs. And they said, we really weren't getting a very good return. Things with fewer students participating and everything else. And when I heard you talking about this change stuff, I went back to the school and I was talking with people at our school system, and they told me that the student population in our community is going down. And then I talked to a major real estate operation, and I found out that because our industries have declined in our community, families with children, as soon as they sort of reach middle school, they leave the community and they go elsewhere for more educational opportunities, etc. So the real estate and chamber got together 3 years ago, And they put out a program to attract retirees to their community, right? Because it was a lovely community, it was along the river, and it was less expensive, and they were becoming highly successful. Now, what does that say to a club that has historically been new gen youth oriented? I'm kind of thinking that your community has changed and the needs have changed. So how do you know? What are the ways you continue to find out? Are there new nonprofits in the area? Are you ready to shift from maybe doing a lot of scholarships to suddenly you've got families in food survival mode? What are the kinds of things you do in your club to constantly get a feel for your community, for what's happening with your members? How do you do that in your club? Oh, come on, I know you know. Yes.
We
Mr.
talk to
Bennett.
them, we talk to them. So although I'm with the satellite organization, and so we're a little bit smaller, we don't have 150 people to call. Philip, our chair, and I reached out directly and spoke with folks because we realized that there were some of our constituents, they were not attending certain meetings. They were not as engaged as we felt was expected or a requirement of our membership. And so we just reached out to them directly and spoke with them. And, we really hope to always have that relationship. Even as our organization changes or grows, we sort of have divided and conquered, and we assign certain members of leadership to divide and conquer, and we go out and we talk to people individually to make sure we know what's going on and to actually have that conversation with them. And these are young adults in many cases, and sometimes they need coaching as to, hey, maybe this isn't a good fit for me, or if they've come to that realization, it's okay to say that, or to ask them, what do we need to be doing differently? What expectations have we failed when you joined our organization? What can we do differently? So it's about communication, which I think is where we're going tonight.
And again, it's always also knowing. For example, we sent out that Anytown, if you saw the thing, Rotary Anytown. And what that talked about was understanding how is your community changing? Who's moving in, who's moving out? What are the age brackets? What are the social economic brackets within your larger community? Because you may have a vision as a club of it being this, and it may be changing. So if your community is changing, the demographic of your community is changing, or it's expanding, it's growing, etc., that's something that has to come back to the full club, because even if you're talking to one another, you may not any of you realize that. So you periodically have to go out. I always say, if you see a trailer that's a bank in the middle of a field and you go, what are they doing there? I can assure you banks know that that is the next development area. So you've got to bring that kind of knowledge into your club, or what young people want. The idea we're changing up meetings. What are some other ideas or some questions that you have? And if anybody have you ever done a SWAT together in your club?
I feel like we're constantly doing that in some regards, but we are 1 year old, so it's a little different. So right now we're going strong and we're feeling pretty good about where we're going. The trajectory is nice, but I feel like Philip and I are sort of strategic on a weekly basis and talking about, hey, what do we need to do going forward? right now we sort of feel like we have more ideas than we do time to implement them. So we're already thinking like 2 fiscals ahead and trying to make all this happen. But we have such a, and just as a side note too, we have such a fantastic relationship with our mother club. They're amazing, and we are so supportive of each other. So I just had to put that ad out there because I'm just really proud of where we are right now. So, but yeah, absolutely. I think always identifying our strengths and our opportunities, definitely on our plate for sure.
Well, Renee or the others, what's the biggest question that you have for the evening? That Renee can answer for you or someone else. You got to have a burning question there.
Burning question.
Or any question. Why is Paparowski wearing a sweater and not, dressed like a nice Rotary person?
Well, I have a notebook of questions for Renee, but that's another day. So I'll let everybody else go.
Yeah, you and I can talk all the time.
I have a burning question. We are a new club, a small club, 28 members, but we are having problems getting the 28 members to come to the meetings. I think for me, I think Zoom is very easy, but for some of our other members, it seems to be problematic. So this is a change that they have to embrace.
Have you had Renee, you mentioned this, a training session where you really help them step by step, and not with everybody else, not a meeting. This is a training session, and you've used that in your club, Renee. I know you have.
Yes, we had to do that early on, and I like I did with Rich today. We just did a one-on-one Zoom. Created one real quick. We already had the link for this one, but create a link real quick, invite them, or if you have a regular meeting link, and then kind of go through. If they can't even get to that point, then maybe it needs to be, you guys are going to have to look at other options for them. Maybe they can watch a recording afterwards, just until someone can be there in person to show them how to do the technology. I feel like it's going to be an uphill climb for some, because some of our Rotarians aren't going to have the technology that it requires. They simply might not. So we have to also keep that in mind. We have Rotarians that like to get their weekly newsletter in print. Donald.
I think you also, go ahead. I have a different spin on this, because I don't think technology is as much of an issue. I think some members are looking for reasons not to attend, and they use Zoom as an excuse. And I think from a club standpoint, what's important is to identify that, reach out to them, communicate with them, find out what's going on in their lives, because it could be something that has nothing to do with Rotary, but their mental energy is being sapped away by something else. And maybe they haven't reached out to club members for help, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's not appropriate to do that, but at least from a leadership standpoint, it's important to know that before they're out the door.
Thank you for saying that. That's awesome.
I also think that you have to really remind people and remind them again that there's an upcoming Zoom call at such and such a time. And you think, you're dealing with adults, you only need to do it once, but the day before, the day of, it's really helpful, particularly when people are inundated with emails and all kinds of other things. It's making it as simple as possible for people to remember, and then they just click on the link because somebody had the foresight to send you the link the third or fourth time.
And Sheila Brennan saved the day early on for me. She suggested, and some of you probably already thought of this, I'm just a little behind. Clearly, I'm not technologically as advanced as I thought. She created a virtual link folder in her email. And every time someone says, here's the link for your meeting, she puts it right. Now that's what I do. It goes right into my virtual link folder. And then when I sit down for my meeting, I just find the date that I'm looking for and it's all right there. So that's something you could share with your members. That's another idea that would help them with their skills. You know,
we had a question from Tony.
Yeah, just a quick note regarding getting people to attend meetings, whether or not they're digital or in person. One thing that we've started doing is sending out surveys with just a quick 5-question survey that allows people to respond how they want to be involved, right? Are they interested in business networking? Are they interested in the speaker? Are they interested in getting more involved with volunteer organizations in the community? And we've actually found that to be a good way to kind of see how each club member is specifically interested in Rotary, and then kind of appeal to them in the way that they're actually interested in getting engaged. That's been very effective.
I love that you did that with your club assessment. Brilliant. That's brilliant to think of, what do I want to know? Change your club assessment to ask those questions. Awesome.
Right.
And now's a good time to do it because folks are, they're using the webinars more and they're getting more used to the technology. So I
Tony,
encourage you to put together a Google survey.
Could I impose upon you to share an example of one of the surveys you use and how you put it together? And I think that would be helpful to all of us to see that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'll email you a link to the Google survey we're using.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, as I said, if you know me, you know we start on time and we end on time. Thank you all for coming. Our next Zoom will be January 5th. And of course, we'll send you notice, but remember where your resource center is. All your materials are going to be there. Please don't feel overwhelmed. That is material for you to look through, to use as you begin your planning process, along with your committee people, how you're going to share that with your members. And so that you will be set and ready to go July 1 when we're going to take Rotary by storm. Everybody have a wonderful holiday. Thank you so much for coming. And we'll see you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Merry